Everyone loves the A-frame. Steep roofline, huge triangular window, that classic silhouette against the trees. And everywhere you look online, someone's promising you one for $100 grand. Here's what almost nobody tells you in those videos. That number is describing the kit, not the cabin. Not the finished, move-in ready, actually livable structure sitting on your land. Just the kit. Today I want to walk you through exactly where that $100,000 number comes from, exactly what it doesn't include, and what your real, final number is more likely to look like. Let's get into it. Before we dig into the real math, if honest cost breakdowns like this are useful to you, subscribe to Elite Prefab Homes. That's the whole reason this channel exists, and it genuinely helps us keep making videos like this one. Let's start with the number everyone's quoting, because it's not made up, it's just incomplete. A-frame cabin kits genuinely span a huge range, anywhere from around $20,000, on the very low end up past $300,000 for a large premium kit. Most kits run somewhere between $60 and $140 per square foot, and that price covers fasteners, hardware, roofing, windows, and doors, everything needed to assemble the shell itself. So if you see a video advertising a $100,000 A-frame, that number is almost certainly describing a mid-size kit at a mid-range price per square foot. Structurally accurate, financially incomplete. My honest opinion, right out of the gate, that number isn't a lie. It's just half the story, and the other half is exactly what we're covering today. Here's the detail that trips up almost every first-time buyer. A-frame kit prices generally do not include site prep, a foundation, utility connections, or professional labor. And most kits don't include interior finishes either. No cabinets, no countertops, no plumbing fixtures, no drywall. Read that again. You're buying a shell, a structural envelope, not a finished home. My honest take? This isn't a scam or a bait and switch. Kit companies are usually pretty upfront about this if you actually read their site. The problem is that videos and thumbnails compress kit price down to just price, and viewers walk away thinking that number is their whole budget. It's not. It's your starting line. Let's build out the real budget piece by piece, starting with the foundation, because this is where reality first hits people. Foundation costs for a cabin-scale structure typically run somewhere between $4 and $14 per square foot for a slab, or roughly $7,000 to $19,000 total, depending on foundation type and size. If your site has rocky soil, a steep slope, or hidden bedrock, that number can climb by tens of thousands more. The ground you're building on matters just as much as the kit you bought. My honest opinion here, this is the line item people underestimate the most, because it's invisible in every glossy cabin photo you've ever seen online. Nobody photographs the foundation. Everybody photographs the finished triangle with the big window, but the foundation is non-negotiable, and it's rarely cheap. Before a foundation even goes in, most sites need actual preparation. Clearing trees, removing rocks, grading uneven terrain, and improving drainage. Site prep for a small cabin typically runs $5,000 to $15,000, though remote or heavily wooded sites can push that number considerably higher. This is especially relevant for A-frame cabins specifically, because a huge percentage of A-frames get built on scenic, remote, wooded, or mountain lots. Exactly the kind of land that looks incredible in photos and is genuinely expensive to prep for construction. That gorgeous forested lot with the mountain view? It probably needs an access road, serious grading, and drainage work before a single kit panel gets assembled. My honest advice? If your dream A-frame lot looks like something out of a postcard, budget more for site prep, not less. Difficult, beautiful terrain and difficult, expensive site prep tend to go hand in hand. Here's the cost category that catches the most people completely off guard. Getting utilities to vacant or rural land. Bringing electricity, water, gas, and septic service to an undeveloped lot typically costs somewhere between $9,000 and $35,000 combined. And that range climbs even further if you're going fully off-grid with solar power, a private well, and a septic system, instead of connecting to existing municipal service. Utility hookups alone, depending on how far you are from existing lines, can run anywhere from $5,000 to well over $30,000 on their own. My honest take? If you're building your A-frame on a remote piece of land, specifically because that's the whole appeal, privacy, forest, mountains, distance from neighbors, you need to accept that the same remoteness that makes the location beautiful is exactly what makes utilities expensive. That's not a coincidence. That's the actual trade-off of remote land, and nobody puts it in the thumbnail. Let's put this all together, because there's a genuinely useful rule of thumb here. A kit-only approach generally starts at a lower price per square foot, but once you add foundation, utilities, and labor, the real total often ends up landing at 2 to 3 times the original kit cost. A turnkey build, where all of those costs are bundled into one package from the start, typically runs somewhere between $125 and $275 per finished square foot. Do that math on a modest 1,000 square foot A-frame, and a fully finished, move-in ready build realistically lands somewhere between $120,000 and $300,000, depending heavily on your region, your site conditions, and how far you push the finishes. My honest opinion? If your actual goal is a genuinely finished, code-compliant, comfortable A-frame cabin, plan on your real number being closer to double the kit price, minimum, and don't be shocked if it's closer to triple on a difficult or remote site. Here's a detail that gets almost no attention in most cabin videos. Where you build changes your total cost dramatically, sometimes more than the design choices you make. The exact same 800 square foot cabin can cost around $100,000 in one region and closer to $200,000 in another. The Northeast and West Coast tend to run the most expensive, while the South and Midwest tend to be noticeably more affordable for the same footprint and finishes. My honest advice? Before you fall in love with a specific price you saw in a video, find out where that video's example was actually built. A $100,000 success story from a builder in one region can be a completely unrealistic target if you're building in a higher-cost part of the country. Let's talk about what makes A-frames specifically a little different from a standard rectangular cabin cost-wise. Because the shape itself introduces some unique line items. That dramatic, steep roofline, the whole reason people fall in love with this shape, actually eats into usable interior square footage, more than people expect, especially on upper levels, where the walls slope inward toward the peak. You're often paying full construction cost for square footage that isn't fully standing height usable space. Large gable-end glazing, the huge triangular window most A-frames are known for, is also genuinely expensive. Big custom glass installations cost significantly more than standard-sized windows, and structurally supporting that much glass at that height adds engineering cost too. My honest design opinion here, and this is the mistake I want you to actually avoid. Don't assume advertised square footage equals usable square footage on an A-frame. Ask specifically how much of the upper level has genuine standing headroom before you commit to a floor plan. I've seen people budget for their full square footage and then realize a meaningful chunk of that upper level is barely usable crawl space next to the roofline. Okay, positive note, because I don't want this video to just be a wall of bad news. My favorite feature of a well-designed A-frame, hands down, is that big gable-end window paired with an open loft space looking down into the main living area below. Yes, it costs more. Yes, it's a real structural and budget line item. But when it's done right, it creates a genuinely dramatic sense of space that a standard rectangular cabin just can't replicate at the same square footage. That one design element is honestly worth the extra cost, in my opinion, if your budget can genuinely stretch to it without cutting corners somewhere more important, like your foundation or your insulation. One more practical note before we wrap up the cost conversation. That dramatic open interior volume under a steep A-frame roof is beautiful, but it's also a lot of air to heat and cool. Vaulted, open ceilings lose heat differently than a standard flat ceiling room. And if insulation isn't handled carefully at the roofline, you can end up with a gorgeous cabin that's genuinely expensive to keep comfortable through a real winter. Don't let insulation be the line item you cut to hit your target budget. It's tempting, because it's invisible in every photo. But it's exactly the kind of decision that turns into a painful monthly utility bill for as long as you own the place. Here's my honest, direct verdict. $100,000 is a real number. For the kit, on favorable land, in a lower-cost region, if you're handling a meaningful amount of labor yourself. It is not, in most cases, a realistic number for a fully finished, professionally built, move-in-ready cabin on a remote or difficult site. If you want to genuinely hit somewhere near that number, your best path is a combination of things. A lower-cost region, a smaller footprint, a site that's already relatively flat and already has reasonably close utility access, and a real willingness to handle some of the labor and finishing work yourself instead of hiring it all out. If none of those conditions apply to your specific project, budget for something closer to $150,000 to $250,000 for a genuinely finished, code-compliant version of the dream you're picturing. That's not me trying to scare you off the idea. It's me trying to make sure you walk in with a real number instead of a headline number. So there you have it. The $100,000 A-frame is real, but it's describing a kit, not a home. Foundation, site prep, utilities, and finishes are where the real money goes, and depending on your land and your region, your true final number can end up 2 to 3 times higher than that first price you saw in a video. That doesn't mean don't build one. It means build one with your eyes open, and a real budget instead of a borrowed one from someone else's lucky site conditions. If breakdowns like this help you plan your own build honestly, that's exactly what Elite Prefab Homes is here for. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Would you still build an A-frame knowing the real number? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.